the 6th day of January, according to the pagans. It's their first month in the winter. That's what we know, they're the heathens, right? But it is the 24th day of Tibet. It is the 10th month, according to the Hebrew Israelite calendar. And it's a Sabbath. So we say, welcome, everybody. Welcome and happy Sabbath. Hope you're having a restful Sabbath and that, that the Spirit is upon you. And I'm hoping that we'll receive a Sabbath day's blessing here today. Okay, and with that said, I am going to address one of the questions that somebody asked. I believe is one of our subscribers from South Africa. Should they in South Africa observe spring as to when spring starts in the northern hemisphere or when spring starts in the southern hemisphere? And they were pointing out to us that spring starts for them later in April than it does for us in March. And so that's a great question, because if we are beginning the calendar of the Hebrew Israelites, according to the calendar which the Lord gave Israel, and if we choose the northern hemisphere beginning of spring, when in fact the Israelites were given their calendar to begin in spring in the land of Israel, and if Israel and the northern hemisphere are in two different hemispheres, then we will have been establishing our calendar incorrectly. And the converse is true also with the southern hemisphere. And that's a great question, because that subscriber was trying to see whether they should start observing their sacred year when we start observing our sacred year, because they're in the southern hemisphere. And that's a great question, right? So we have to answer that question. And by the way, you know, I've never really heard any Hebrew Israelite camp address that question. Never heard it. And I think also that most of these Hebrew Israelite camps, they just go along without any consideration for these hemispheric differences, right? And never address that question. So that's a great question, and we're going to address it today with proof, right? So how do we prove this? How do we prove this? Now, my answer to that question is that that we follow the northern hemisphere start of spring. We follow the northern hemisphere beginning of spring. Okay. And so I'm going to have to prove it. I'm going to have to prove it. And the way I'm going to prove it is this way. Let's look at this map. I'm going to share this map with us. Now, this is an official cartography, right, from a scientific work that was done by the Gleason, and it's called the Gleason projection. Let me see if I can make it big. So if you can see it here at the top of your screen, it says the Gleason's projection map. It says it's the new standard map for the world. This is an official map, and it says it's on the projection of the Modern College, and over here it says by J.S. Christopher, Blackheath, England. And you can find this in most libraries. I believe it is also in the Library of Congress. You can find this map. So it is an actual scientific work, and it is very accurate, okay? Very accurate. So I want to share this with us because I want to prove that Israel, the land of Israel, is in the northern hemisphere, okay? And by the way, this map also proves the Earth should not be a globe. By the way, you know, I tried to do this with the Google Earth globe, okay? let's see. Here, I have the Google Earth globe. Okay, this is it. And the problem with this is when you turn it, it doesn't turn, it rolls. Okay, it rolls. And I was trying to see whether I could identify whether Israel is in the same hemisphere as us here in what we call North America and the Americas. I was trying to see if I could do that. It was very difficult to do. So I find that this other map is better to use. Okay, so let's use this map. And I also want to point out that that this map is similar to the map that is used by the United Nations. This map is also used by the military. This is how they are able to fire guided missiles so accurately, because this is the map they use. They're not using a globe. They're using a flat map, okay? And this here center of the map is the North Pole, what they refer to as the North Pole, but it is not up no north. It is in the middle, in the center of the Earth. And all lines of longitude and latitude proceeds from it this way out, okay? All right, and I'm going to show you. Let's do this. Let's do this. I'm going to open a new page. Let's open a new page, family, and let's go to where we can do a search. Okay, I'm going to search here. The map. No, I'm going to do the symbol of the UN. The UN is the United Nations. And I'm just going to click it. And you see that? You see the image that they have? It's the image of the same map. It's the Gleason's projection. That's what they use. You see it? This is what the United Nations symbol is. And if you notice that this map and this map is the exact same thing. But they would want you to think that you're on a globe and you're spinning. But yet they're not using that map to prove anything or to do anything scientific. They're not. Okay. All right. So let's prove that Israel is in the northern hemisphere on this map. So this is Africa. This right here, if you can see my cursor going around it, this is Africa. Okay. Right here is the Horn of Africa. This is the Horn of Africa. So it's kind of set on the slant, but it's the same map. That's the Horn of Africa, okay? This right here is the Red Sea, okay? And over here is Shem's land, okay? And Israel is right here. And this is the land bridge that you can walk over to go into Egypt. Remember that? Okay, that land bridge that Joseph and Mary and the donkey walked across, okay? The same land bridge that Abraham walked across when he went into Egypt. Okay, that's it right here. So this is where Israel is, okay? Now, this is North America. This is where we are in the Americas. This is the Caribbean. There's Cuba and Jamaica and the rest, okay? All right, and this is South America, all right? Okay, so we are using the beginning of spring based on the northern hemisphere. And the question is Israel in the same hemisphere as us? And how can we tell? Well, if this is North America, if you follow the lines of latitude, then you should meet Israel in the same line of latitude. So we're going to just follow the line of latitude around, okay? And we'll see this is where Israel is, right there. So the land of Israel is in the northern hemisphere, just as us here in the Americas. You see, it's the northern hemisphere. You can read that it says the Atlantic Ocean. It says North Atlantic Ocean. This is the equator. You see the equator right there? That's the equator. And then it says South. You can see South Atlantic Ocean. See it? So this is the South, and this is the North. And this is the United States and the Americas right here on the exact same lines of latitude with Israel right here. So Israel and North America and the Northern Hemisphere are seeing spring at the same time. So our calendar is accurate with the start of spring. It's similar to that of the land of Israel because we're in the Northern Hemisphere. And South Africa, where the question came from, is in the Southern Hemisphere, down here. You see, they are below the equator. And that is why they're asking us this question, because they don't see spring the same time as us. Okay? All right, so that's my question. That's my answer to the question. My answer to the question is we follow the Northern Hemisphere because Israel is in the Northern Hemisphere, not the Southern Hemisphere. All right, so that's one question. Then the other question is that somebody had said to us that they were reckoning the month and the beginning of the first day of the year every year in April, and they said it's the first week of April that which is on a Sunday. They said this is a Sunday, the first week of April every year that the new year begins. Okay, and it's a popular teaching by the Kingdom Preppers people. That's what they teach, and we're going to take a look at that. So let's see. Let me find their this is it. Okay, so I was on their channel, the Kingdom Preppers, and this is their map. And by the way, let me, if I didn't do it before, evoke the Fair Use Act, because this is not my work. I don't own this content. This is purely for teaching and educational purpose. Okay, so Fair Use Act, fair use. Okay, so this is Kingdom Preppers work, and this is their calendar. This is, I believe, this is the first day of the first. This is the first month for the Kingdom Preppers, and this is how they set up their calendar. And they say that the first day is written right here. See if I can make it bigger so you can see it. They say that the new month in the new season always fall on the Gregorian Sunday, starting with the first Sunday in April. So they are saying that the first Sunday in April is the first day of the first month of every year. And that is the New Year's Day. And they're saying that that day is that first day when God says, let there be light. And so they're saying that the year starts its count on the first day of the week, the first Sunday in April every year. That's what they say. And this is how they have it laid out. So they say that the first day of the week is this one. Second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, sixth day, and this is just Sabbath. Now, let's see if that is so according to scriptures. I'm going to get my marking pencil. I'm going to mark on top of his calendar, okay? All right, so if this is the first day of Abib, and that's what they teach, they say it's the first day of April every year, not the first day of April. This is the first Sunday. They say the first day of the year is the first Sunday in April every year. So this will be their Abib 1, the first day of Abib. Okay? And so the seventh day of Abib, which will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That would be the seventh day of Abib. 8, 9, 10. And by the way, the red letters are the Gregorian calendar, okay? These red letters here are the Gregorian calendar. Their days are the ones written day 10, day 11, okay? All right, so that would be day 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, as you can see, day 13 here, and day 14 would be here. All right, and they are saying that the Passover is on the 14th day of the first month, which is what scripture says. But they are saying that the Passover is on a Sabbath. See, they have the Sabbath, and they have right here that this is Passover. And then they have the 15th day, which is the first day of unleavened bread here. They have it on a Sunday, right? See, that's a Sunday. And they have the 15th day of unleavened bread beginning here. And this is, the scripture says, a Sabbath is a high holy day Sabbath. Okay? The day after the Passover, the 15th day is a high holy day Sabbath. So this is what they teach, that the Passover is on a Sabbath. No, they're saying, therefore, that Yahushua died on a Sabbath. That's what they're saying, that the Lord died on a Sabbath. But yet we know that at sunset on the 14th is the beginning of the Sabbath of the first day of the week of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So what they have happening is a weekly Sabbath and a ceremonial Sabbath falling back to back. And they're having the ceremonial Sabbath on the first day of the week. All right? So here's the problem. Here's the problem with this teaching. If we agree that Passover is on the 14th and it is a Sabbath, because you see they have Shabbat, okay? And that's the day of the Passover, then according to the scriptures, 3 days and 3 nights after Passover, the Lord would have risen, right? So this would have to be his day 1 in the grave. This would have to be his day 2 in the grave. And this would have to be day 3 on which he rose as the sun sets. So they're saying that Yahushua rose on the Tuesday, right? But we're going to go to the scripture to prove it. If we go to the book of Luke, because remember, Yahushua is the Passover, right? He died on the day of the Passover, on the 14th day of the first month. He died there. So if that were Sabbath, then when we go to Luke 24, at the resurrection, and it says, upon the first day of the week, very early in the morning, they came unto the sepulchre, bringing the spices which they had prepared, and certain others with them. This is on the first day of the week. And when they came, they found that the stone was already rolled away from the sepulchre, right? He was already risen. So let's go back to their calendar and see the problem. If Christ died here according to them on the Sabbath, and this is 3 days and 3 nights that he spent in the grave, then he rose this evening, then this is the morning when the women went to the tomb. But the scripture says this morning is the first day of the week. So you see the problem. And if this is the first day of the week, then what precedes the first day of the week? The Sabbath. So this would have to be a Sabbath. Sorry for my crude writing. This would have to be a Sabbath. So the problem with this idea that the first day of the new year is on the first Sunday in April every year brings upon it the problem of the feast days. Because if this day is the 14th day on which the Passover is killed, then 3 days and 3 nights after that is when Yahushua is risen, and the next morning is the first day of the week. So you cannot have a Sabbath here and a Sabbath here, and a first day of the week here, and a first day of the week here. That does not exist. And so what happens is that the people who teach this, they teach it in isolation of the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ. Or some of them say that what is written in the New Testament concerning the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ are lies. This is how they get out of the problem that this teaching faces. All right? So we cannot have a Sabbath 3 days after a Sabbath. All right? So this is the problem I find with the Kingdom Preppers calendar. And another thing that they do also is that they present each calendar month in isolation, just like this. They do not show you a continuation of all the calendar days. They present them in isolation like this. But when you plug the feast days into it, you discover that there is a problem. Now, not only is this one of the problems, there's another problem with their count from here to Pentecost, which is 50 days after the resurrection. So you have to start counting 50 days from here. And the scripture says that the 50th day is the morrow after the seventh Sabbath, right? So if they were to count 50 days from here, then you would not end up on the morrow after the seventh Sabbath 50 days later. And the morrow after the seventh Sabbath 50 days later is what? The first day of the week, right? The morrow after the Sabbath is the first day of the week. And if you were to count here, you would find that that would not be the case. Okay? So there's two serious problems with their calendar. And as I've always said, if you want to prove whether your calendar is accurate, plug the feast days into it and you'll see it. All right? And until the next lesson, shalom, shalom, and shalom, everybody.